Welcome to the Anonymous Andrew Podcast. Life and the choices we make. The choices other people make. This podcast explores all things as they relate to dating and romantic relationships. Why we ignore or choose to ignore or miss the red flags. Red flags like gaslighting, cheating, lying, narcissistic behavior, deception, mental illness, addiction, and so much more. Join me each week as we continue my journey into the modern dating world with my weekend rants, anonymous guest dating stories, and experts who share their wisdom so I can help you navigate the dating terrain. If you are new to the show, or have been with me from the beginning, hold on tight for the Anonymous Andrew experience. Hello, Anonymous Andrew Podcast. Back with you with the Weekend Rant, October 21st, 2023. So this week, at the beginning of the week, and when I think of the weekend rant that I have coming up every week, right? So the format has changed. I'm now one guest on Tuesday and one weekend rant on the weekends, and the weekend rant has been over the past couple of months because something has happened, and I'm in an uproar. Or there's something I want to share with you. Any number of things. Or what kind of mood I'm in. It's just me coming on the mic on the weekends and just airing it out. Just telling you what's going on. I am that, as everybody's been saying, open, honest, and vulnerable guy. And I'm just coming on here and telling you what is going on in my life. And over the summer, some of the rants were about specific things that were going on in my life, either a date or a ghosting story, or I was pissed off about something, whatever. This week was relatively quiet until this morning. And then, not that something bad happened, but I had like another epiphany. I'm having a lot of epiphanies lately. Okay, but before we get into the rant, I always do reviews. You guys are going to leave them. I told you I would read them, and I got a couple of more reviews. So let's start with Big Jag. And he writes, I'm assuming it's a he, could be a she. Listen to feel normal. 5 stars. What I mean by this is when you get out there dating, you sometimes feel like you're the only one having these problems, only to find out Andrew has them too. Listen, it'll make you feel better. Thank you, Big Jags, because you are right. In the beginning, this is why I got on. This is why I started the podcast. I felt so fucking alone. What happened to me in this last relationship, I said, there's no way anybody else went through what I went through. And may or may not have gone through the exact same thing where she was cheating on me with whatever. I'm not going to rehash that. But the point is that dating in today's world, and especially after COVID, and my last relationship was during COVID, it was just so fucked up. And the relationship was good, then it took a turn, and then it went downhill fast, and I stayed. But the point is that other people are absolutely identifying with what I'm going through or went through. And that was the whole idea, was to share what's happening to me, and hopefully some other people will have identified and they can come along for the ride or share with me what's going on. And folks, I'm getting reviews and I'm getting comments, but I'd like to hear from you or have you come on the show. So, Big Jags, apparently you had a issue with a dating problem. Come on the show and talk about it. You're going to be anonymous. Your name's not going to be used. You've already heard, if you've listened, that I've had several guests come on, and I even changed one guy's voice to a chipmunk. So, anyway, if you'd like to come on the show and tell us about your dating issue, I would love to have you on. Next review. This one I had to read twice. So it's titled, and it's by somebody who wrote 3 boys or buoys. But then she leaves a name at the bottom. Fellow narc victim, appreciate this GR, and then it stops. I don't know how to get it to. So in other words, she wrote something and then it cut off, and I can't read the rest of it. But the point is, 5 stars. As a fellow podcaster and someone who's been in a relationship with a narc, and I'm assuming narc means narcissist, not a narcotic person. So let me start again. As a fellow podcaster and someone who's been in a relationship with a narc, and luckily enough to be raised by one too, I really appreciate the conversation with the trauma specialist. Thanks, Susie Petite. Okay, Susie, would you like to come on the show? If you have a podcast, come on. I invite you on. You can come on as we can promote your podcast and you can tell us your story, or just contact me and we can talk privately and whatever. I'd love to have you come on and tell your story. But thank you for the 5 stars and thank you for the review. I think I got one more. Yes. Dating later in life. This is from HK Cernot. Fantastic show with a complete honesty from a fellow who has not been lucky in love for most. No, for all. Okay. If you find yourself in the dating pool after several years of being out, this podcast will make the experience a little less lonely. Thank you. And that was 4 stars. So thank you very much, HK Cernot. And again, I invite you on. Come on and let's talk. You can be anonymous or not. So, and then I think that's it. Okay, so that was the 3 new reviews. So I know I keep saying this, in my wildest imaginations, folks, when I started this thing, I was just grief-stricken, angry, depressed. I didn't know what to do, and I was a podcast listener, and I said, you know what, let me start a podcast about this, because like one of the reviews said, he felt lonely. I felt as if I had to get my story out there. Never, ever in my wildest imaginations did I think that would I get to not only get a podcast and get put season 1, like get that done, but now I'm in season 2 and have 34 ratings and a 4.8 rating. It blows my mind. And yes, I'm doing it, but it's you folks are the ones that are listening and giving me the feedback and the reviews. So thank you very much. Rant. Okay. I may have said this already. By the way, this is a take 2. I did the first take and it didn't go so well because I got this. You know, I think I told you guys a while back, I switched softwares. I no longer use Zoom, and I no longer use some of the other freebies that came with Mac. I I finally decided to go out and buy some of the professional stuff, and you know what? I'm going to call them out. There's a company called Squadcast, and they're kind of new on the scene, I think. And I bought them, and because it was recommended to me to buy them, and I have had nothing but problems with them since I've been using it. I have maybe done 5 recordings, and I've had issues with each and every one of them. So I'm trying this once again on Squadcast. I do have a second one. I do use Riverside, which is the premier one that most have, and I do pay for that too. But I want to learn this. I want to learn all of them. When you get into this technology, you got to keep up with what's the current software and the recording and the editing and all that. And so anyway, the first take, I messed up. I said something I shouldn't have, and I thought I could fix it in the editing, and whatever. I messed it up. So this is take 2, which means that I have to do the rant all over again. But I love you guys, so I don't care. I met another woman this week. Okay, before I get into her, I mentioned... Okay, so at the beginning, in the summertime, you guys know that I was kind of struggling with what to do with myself. And yes, I went to the beach, I went bicycling, I played tennis, yada, yada. But there was so many guests that I had. So I belong to Podmatch, all right? I'm going to give them a shout out. And Podmatch, what they do is you pay a small fee, and you write a profile about your podcast and what you're looking for as a guest, and they will match you, and they will offer you guests. And I was getting flooded with guests, like 20 a week, and you have to weed out the ones that just don't fit the theme of your podcast. But either way, I was getting 10, 20 a week, or every 2 weeks, or whatever, and I started to book them and record them. And it became a little overwhelming because I work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And when I come home at night, I have either an AA meeting or I have something going. I have a life. I have chores I got to do. I got dishes. I got laundry, whatever. So I couldn't edit all of these episodes. So as I recorded them, they went into a queue, like a folder. And I would mark them like I got to edit it this weekend. And some of them, and I'm going to be honest here, got lost in the queue. I just overlooked them, and I didn't edit them. So there was an episode that I found today. This sounds terrible. I found an episode today that I recorded 2 months ago, and it did not get edited. And it obviously, if you don't edit it, didn't get published. So I scrambled today. I sat down and I started working on it, but I had to go back and listen to the interview so I could do the intro and outro. And oh my God, I can't believe I missed this one. This was one of my better guests. It was all about self-dating, or dating oneself. And we covered that topic back in episode 38 of season 1. Angela Marshall, the woman who's an ex-NFL wife, and she wrote a book. She talked about dating yourself, and that was 2 months before this recording that I'm editing today. So this is the second time that I had a guest come on that talked about, before you go dating again, coming out of a horrible relationship, and if you're going to take some time off like I did, you should date yourself. And I did. This whole summer I spent bicycling and going to the beach and playing tennis by myself, even though I have a partner and I have several partners. But I did many, many, many things by myself. And this guest told me today that whatever you would do with a date, like if you're going to take them to the movies, then take yourself to the movies. If you're going to take them bungee jumping, then you go bungee jumping yourself. Take yourself dating. And I that goes against my grain only because it's not something what I'm used to doing. My story and my pattern of dating has been my entire life. One relationship ends, I jump into another one. And the other concept that I'm getting here is that don't just date one person, date multiple people. So I took a year off from dating. And yes, I went on a few dates. I want to talk about Helen. If you guys remember, I dated a woman named Helen. That's not her real name. And Helen, if you're still listening, I owe you a huge apology. Get back to her. Although she knew the name of the podcast, and I have a feeling she's been listening or did listen, and I did apologize, and I told her why I wasn't ready to continue. Because, folks, I know myself. I was dating her. We went on a great date, and I had a good time, and I knew if I went on a second date, it would have led to a third date, and then before you know it, there would have been some sort of a relationship bonding or building, and I had nobody else that I was dating. The idea of dating multiple people at the same time, not at the exact same time, but like you go on a date this weekend with person A, and maybe Friday and Saturday person B, and then next weekend person C. The idea is to get a feel, play the field. And I'm not talking about getting laid, all right? We're not talking about having sex. We're just talking about dating multiple people to see what is out there. And because I would just choose the next thing that came. I shouldn't call a person a thing. I chose the next person who came along. My relationship ended, and then the next person I started dating became a relationship. And I didn't date other people. I didn't go out and see the big pool to choose from. And this is a pattern of mine that I need to break. Okay, so that leads me into what's going on this week. I met somebody, and I promised her, if you guys might know that there were a couple of women that I dated over the summer that, like an idiot, I told them I had a podcast, and then when they say, oh, what's the podcast? What's it about? Instead of just saying, oh, it's a podcast about life and the choices we make, I could have kept it very vague. I told them it was about relationships and dating, and naturally you're going to be curious as to, oh, can I listen to it? And so yeah, I gave it to them. So it's called Anonymous Andrew. Go look it up. Not thinking. All right, so whoever's listening to this, I want you to pretend that you're a woman. And if you are a woman, if you listen to this podcast while you're talking to me on a dating app, and you hear everything that I'm saying, my honesty, the trauma that I've been through with the last relationship, the fact that I admit that I'm a serial dater and a codependent person, yada, 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 would you date me? No. And that's what I did. So I gave all these women the podcast, and I never heard from them again, and rightfully so. So I met a woman this week. Let's call her Susanna. I met Susanna this week on a dating app. I'm going to keep this extremely vague because Susanna did see that I have a podcast, and she did ask me about it, and I told her, but I did not give her the name, and she didn't ask to listen to it, and I did, thankfully, and because then I would have had to say no. And her only comment to me was, please don't pull the Taylor Swift on me. I thought that was pretty funny. Because apparently Taylor Swift gets up and talks about her exes or her current relationships. And in other words, she does what I do, but she's famous. I'm not. So she asked that I don't mention her name and that I don't talk about her in detail. So let's just keep it simple. I met a woman this week. We'll call her Susanna. That's not her name. And Susanna and I have been texting back and forth, and it has been pleasant. And we, on this dating app, we matched like 119 points or something. I'm not even going to tell you the dating app. And we have a lot in common. And the conversations were paragraphs long. And I finally said to her, look, we seem to have a lot in common. We're answering each other's texts on the app with these long paragraphs. Why don't we just talk on the phone? So I gave her my number, and she said to me this morning, yeah, here's my number. I can't talk today. Let's talk tomorrow. So I'm going to be talking to Susanna tomorrow, and that's all I'm going to say about her, because I promised her I wouldn't say anything else. And Susanna, if you hear this in the future, I kept my promise. Nobody knows who you are, and whether our dates go well or not, I promise you I will not do a Taylor Swift on you. I think that pretty much covers my rant. Talked about dating ourselves. I talked about the new woman. I really wish my first take worked, because it was much better. It was whatever. This is podcasting, folks. It just doesn't always play out the way you want it to. So if you're going to make a choice, if you have to make a choice, I urge you to choose wisely. Like this Susanna, I'm going to start dating her, it looks like, or go on a date with her. And I have to be extremely careful that I don't jump into this, like we go on a first date, and by the way, she's attractive, and I like that. And there's nobody else on my radar. I don't have it. I'm not talking to any other women right now. So if I date Susanna next week and then we go on another date and another date, it could lead towards like a relationship, and while that might not be such a bad thing, I have been told to go on multiple dates or date multiple people before I get into the next relationship. And I'm not being over inundated with women right now. And with a little footnote on that, I'm not putting in a lot of energy into finding women. I am on several apps, and if I check them twice a week or 3 times a week, it's a lot. And 2 or 3 of the apps are just horrible. They're horrible. By the way, I'll tell you, I'm on Hinge. It sucks. I don't know what the hype is about Hinge. I must have sent out 5 roses and contacted 20 women, and I haven't gotten 1 response. I did get 1 rose from somebody, and I don't know how to say this, but let's just say I wasn't attracted to this person. Hinge, there's been 0 activity on, okay? Let's see, I really don't want to mention the dating apps I'm on right now, but there's 2 or 3 others that I'm on. I did mention the one about the video speed dating. There hasn't been a lot of activity on that. That one I have been participating in, but I have not gone on a video dating how that works is that they match you with somebody, and then you can't drag that out. You have to go on a video date within 4 or 5 days, or they expire the match. Okay, I'm rambling. Please, if you like what you're hearing, you like my rants, and you like my guests, and you're dating, you're in the dating world, or you're in a relationship and you're having issues, or you're just enjoying the show, or you know somebody that's enjoying that could use some help, you can pass the show along. Please give me 5 stars on Apple or Spotify. It could really help. I have up to 34 reviews, and I see the data. I'm doing better than I thought I was, but I have a long way to go, folks. And you guys have been great, but I need more. So keep passing this on. And again, if you're going to choose somebody as a partner, please, I urge you to take some time and think. I don't care if you got on 6 dates and they're the most beautiful person in the world. Think long and hard. Is this person? Think like down the road, and look for those red flags, because when we're in the grasp of love blindness, we don't see the red flags. And that's what I missed, or I chose to ignore, and I got burned. And now I have a podcast. So, silver lining to that cloud. All right, that's my rant for the week. We'll see you next weekend. Until next time, ciao.